Hey guys, Bobby here with the GM table, and I'm doing a video I honestly didn't think I was going to. I'm covering my first impressions on Pathfinder 2nd edition. Okay, so like I said, today I'm talking about my first impressions of the 2nd edition of Pathfinder. And full disclosure, I'm not a Pathfinder fan. I wasn't a fan of 1st edition. I'm not getting into it. If that's your type of fun, great. I wouldn't make a video about a game I didn't have good things to say about, though. I don't look to make videos just to bash stuff. That's not what I'm looking to do online. So I have a whole list. It's washed out, but here's a list of good things. I will say I got some things I don't like. We're going to cover the positive first. Anyways, starting off, I think we're going to go with the obvious things. This book is gorgeous. And to me, this goes right along with art. The book is organized really well as far as chapters. There's a little graphic on the side that you can see when the book's closed of the chapter, so you can quickly flip to sections. I love the little artist renderings of different concepts of classes within the classes, as well as like quick builds. And there's not just one, there's several, and they're more like little sidebar things. The visuals are amazing. There are so many splash pages. I believe every class has a full page splash page of art before you even start anything written about the class. The second thing I really want to cover is how they handle actions in Pathfinder 2nd edition. This isn't anything new if you've already been following Pathfinder. But unlike D&D and even a lot of D20 systems, there's no you get one big action and maybe there's minor actions or free action stuff. Now there are free actions and reactions, but on your turn, every player gets up to 3 actions. This is one of those things that reminds me a lot of Savage Worlds. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but let's just say a lot of the underlying math of Pathfinder, not the obvious stuff, you gotta break it down and see the gears that make the game run, is very similar in a lot of ways to a lot of the underlying stuff to Savage Worlds. I appreciate that. I enjoy that. And the 3 action economy is brilliant. There are no minor actions. You still can have some free actions and everybody gets 1 reaction. But in that, you get 3 actions. What's even more brilliant about this than even Savage Worlds, and I've toyed with some arcane backgrounds that do similar stuff, you'll see when we start talking about Hellgate High, is not everything you do takes 1 action, especially spells. Spells that would be really quick take 1 action, but some spells take 2 actions. Some spells take 3 actions, aka all the actions on your turn. And it's not just magic. Fighters will get special kind of stuff. Really, every class gets different options they can end up taking that might take more than 1 action to pull off. So it's this action economy setup. Stuff like, again, for fighters, if you really want to make the best out of your shield, you actually have to use one of your actions to keep your shield up. I love that, actually. I know some people think shields should just be this kind of like passive bonus, but honestly, as someone who's done martial training with sword and board, with shields, with whips, with staves, all of that stuff, fighting with a shield, you have to stay aware of the fact that you have a shield. It's not just floating around blocking everything. You have to keep it. You have to decide where to block. Now, it's not that in depth. It's not like the shield bonus only applies to 1 person. But I think the kind of halfway point of it takes 1 of your 3 actions to keep a shield up and actively defending is great. I actually really love that. It gives a lot more tactical choice without flipping through a bunch of different rules and remembering minutia. So another thing I really enjoy in Pathfinder 2nd edition isn't 100% unique to it, but how they present it is different than a lot of other games, especially D&D actually, but it's the idea of modes of play. Pathfinder has 3 modes of play: combat, aka initiative, exploration, and downtime. Downtime's just a mode. And downtime isn't the downtime activities, though it does kind of include that. It's anytime stretches out Any time, game time, stretches out really long, days or weeks or months, any of that, that's downtime. You're not caring about every hour or every few seconds, like exploring a dungeon or being in a fight. So it's really, really nice, and I really enjoy that. Again, I said I was going to do a little comparison. In D&D, especially 5th edition, where they really start acknowledging it again, they call it the pillars of play, where there's combat, exploration, and social. None of them are really separate in the fact of like how they function. It's these are the things that people enjoy in the game and the different things you can do in the game. This, while it still covers some of it, like social can take place really at any of them and things like that, this is a very different idea. This is actually closer to the old school of rounds versus turns versus days, which is how you would do timekeeping, and other games have been implementing it forever. This, they then kind of combine the two concepts and have initiative, exploration, and downtime. And I love it, and how they use it within the nuances. I actually really, really like. All right, the next two I'm just going to kind of combine, because one is I like that they fixed something I hated in the playtest. And again, full disclosure, I only read the first playtest. I don't have the time or energy, and again, I wasn't already really a Pathfinder fan, so I didn't keep up with every iteration of the playtest when it first came out. I downloaded it, I read it, I immediately saw things that were huge red flags for me, and I stopped there. And one of them, which we're going to get into the whole proficiency situation, but one of the big red flags for me in the playtest, again, the first draft, from what I've heard, they fixed it quite early in the playtesting, was the fact that even if you were untrained in a skill, you still added your level -2. So the only difference between untrained and being like a master was something like 5 or 6. That level adding did not matter at all if you actually broke the math down. Being untrained, you were still getting a rank up every level once you were past level like 3. They got rid of that. If you're untrained, it's +0. Now, the other proficiencies are, it goes up equal to your level, or level +1, or level +2, based on like how trained you are. And all those versions go up every level. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into how I feel about that and the implications and things. Some people might not even notice about how that's actually working in the game. But that's a whole separate thing. That's on the back half. Right now, we're talking about the good things. And I appreciate that they went untrained matters. I feel like that's a given and an obvious. But since it wasn't like that in the first version I read, I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to thank them for fixing what was probably the biggest red flag for me. Now, combined with that, because lumping it together, Pathfinder did this a bit, but they've done it even better here of limiting what does and doesn't stack. There's very defined types of bonuses you get. And from what I've read through, I've skimmed through the book twice. I've talked with people who've done much deeper dives, players I have who've really analyzed and were following all the playtests. We've had long discussions. I've checked with them in case I might have missed something. As far as I can tell, there is no untyped bonus. So every bonus has a type, and same type doesn't stack. Even just wearing armor counts as an item bonus. The armor's innate armor bonuses is an item bonus, even if it's not magic item bonuses. And there's no difference. Item is item. I like this, actually. It means you only have to remember up to 3 or 4 types of bonuses. Now, penalties do have untyped penalties, and I'm okay with this because it's how they incorporated the 3 action rules, and I didn't get too much into it. But again, comparing to Savage Worlds, in Savage Worlds, you can take up the 3 actions. Your second action, everything's at a penalty. Your third action, all checks are at an even bigger penalty. In this, if your actions are different, no penalty. In fact, even if your actions are the same and they're not attacking, no penalty. But your first attack has no penalty. Your second attack has a -5. Your third attack has a -10. It's not to all the checks if you do 2 or 3. They just progressively get lower. This also kind of faces where Pathfinder had the base attack bonuses that then became like 6/1 because now you could do a +6 and get a second attack at +1 and all. Now you just went even at level 1. If you think you might hit, you can always go for those extra attacks. I actually like that. It makes it much easier to remember. So doubling back to something I liked, but it kind of brings in with the limited stacking. Also, I've really only seen bonuses of plus or -2, especially for attribute modifiers and stuff. I had to double check with someone whether or not the attribute scores actually mattered. And they do. They matter in different parts of the game, just not character creation. And I missed them in my first couple read-throughs because they're kind of these minute things. I didn't read every magic item and every spell, so I knew there would be blind spots. That's why I checked with people who do. I do the best to get my research. I don't want to put this video out in 2 months when I fully analyze the entire book. It's first impressions, guys. But with it always being plus or -2, basically there might be fringe cases I've missed. It also means, okay, I have this many bonuses times 2, because they're all 2. Done. Now, penalties and situation bonuses and those more niche rules can become much different numbers. But I'm talking about on the player side of things, because that's where counting up the bonuses they have from different stuff really got tedious for me in Pathfinder. I love that. Now we're getting into the things I really, really like. These are the things that a bit of a teaser. Next week I'm doing another Pathfinder-ish video. Last 2 weeks were back-to-back Savage Worlds. That's because I was going to do back-to-back non-Savage Worlds, because I just want these together, of things I'm stealing from Pathfinder 2 for D&D 5th edition, or how I'm going to try to do it and see how they work. And the first one is the Wounded trait. I love the Wounded trait. It was one of the biggest problems, especially for fantasy-type games where you can just have magic, healing magic flying around, is if you don't instantly die at 0, like OSR-style games. I don't love those games anyways. If you want to have a dying mechanic, then if they're at 0, unless you're dealing with negative hit points stuff, everybody's kind of ditched that too. They get healed and they pop back up. 5th edition's really bad about this, where people go down and they pop back up, and they go down and they pop back up. Wounded, each time you're popped back up, you have a point of wounded. And now, whenever you go down, it essentially, without getting into the whole death and dying mechanics, it's kind of like death saves from 5th edition, but a little tweaked, and you get 4 of them instead of 3. But each time you go down, if you have a wounded condition, and they can have multiple numbers, that's essentially a number of already failed death saves. So the more times you pop back up, when you go back down, it's more dangerous. I love that. I'm looking at incorporating that in 5th edition. Again, a bit of a teaser. I don't want to say everything in here. A lot of these I am. Not all of these. You gotta watch next week to find that out. But I love Wounded. Wounded is probably the second best piece of design in this game. I'm going to skip over the hero. Well, no, I'm going to talk about hero points. I want to go second best to the best, but hero points kind of go with Wounded. I love hero points. Hero points are very similar to Inspiration 5th edition, but really, they're a lot more similar to Bennies and Savage Worlds. First of all, you're not limited to just 1. Now, they hand out hero points kind of like crazy. You're expected to automatically get 1 every session. I didn't see anything in there about you lose them at the end of a session, like Bennies, so you can kind of hoard them. If you face any challenge that's above a certain amount of difficulty for your group, you're supposed to give them a hero point for surviving that challenge and stuff, so you can stack these up a lot. Now, the big limiting factors, again, like Inspiration, you can spend them to reroll, again, like Bennies. Or, if you're down, even if you failed your check, where you could, like, basically have failed death save, you can spend all your hero points. Now, this is the one I find a little weird. I might look at the map, because those who hoard it are actually less likely to spend them. Granted, if they die, all their points are gone anyways. But you can spend all your hero points to immediately pop up, and you don't gain either the wounded condition or wounded doesn't go up for that time you pop up, because you did it heroically. You used your hero points. I actually really like that. I'm going to lump that in with wounded. So we can say that whole system, how it works together, second piece of design in the game. The greatest piece of design in this game is something, if you follow Pathfinder 2nd edition kind of at all, you already know about. But I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say this is easily the best piece of design in the last 15-ish years, maybe the best piece of design in the last 20 years for D20 based games. And it's how critical successes and critical failures work. If you beat a check or a DC or an AC, if you beat the target number by 10 or more, you didn't just succeed, you critically succeeded. Also, if you roll a 20, if the number outcome of rolling a 20 with all your bonuses would have counted as a success, you also critically succeed. If those number outcomes would have counted as a failure, you now succeeded because of the 20. Same with ones in the opposite direction. Also, if you fail a check by 10 or more, you critically fail. And this creates a sliding scale of success. You can critically fail, you can fail, you can succeed, you can critically succeed. And it's not just that technically, if you've been playing with crits, that's always happened. But crit fail was always a 5% chance, only on a 1. And critical success was always a 5% chance, only on a 20. Not counting abilities. I mean, you want to do it in the comments of like, the Champion Fire in 5th edition gets it on a 19, and I get that. I'm talking the broad design of the game. There's always exceptions to the rules. This is sweeping across the game, which also means those higher numbers matter because it's not about whether or not you succeed. It's about whether or not you critically succeed, because high-level play is supers, and it's not, did I do it? It's, was I amazing when I did it? Now, along with that, a lot of the actions now have, this happens on a success, this happens on a critical success. And since criticals are much more dependable, they're fundamentally the same from a design standpoint, and I literally saw point-for-point comparisons on similar actions between the two systems as raises in Savage Worlds. Especially when we get to Adventures Edition, where very few things in the newest version of Savage Worlds have things that happen on multiple raises. It's about, did you succeed or did you get a raise? Beyond that, with the exception of wounds and dramatic tasks, it very rarely matters. The design is getting that way. The design is getting 2-tiered success. This also has 2-tiered failure, which I really like. Again, technically Swayed and Savage Worlds has that with the Snake Eye Bennies, the Snake Eyes critical failures of double ones. But again, that's very unlikely. It's not as reliant. No, and not reliant. It's not as dependable or predictable as, well, if you fail by 10 or more, it happens. 5th edition has some of these where there'll be monster effects of, if you fail the DC, this happens. If you fail by more than 5, this happens. But this is just sweeping across the entire system. This is how crits, successes, and failures work. Easily the best piece of design to hit at least D20 style gaming in years. Maybe one of the best pieces of design to hit tabletop RPGs. Okay, now we're getting into one that's technically a very small thing, but I love it. I love how they do fall damage. And it might sound dumb, but I really do. I love it, and it's the simplest one. I'm probably going to steal this for all my games. Because here's how fall damage works. You have to fall further than 5 feet for it to even kick in. Might be 10. I'm 99% sure it's 5. How far did you fall? Half of that is the damage you took. It's not for every 10 you roll a d6, which most fall damage are. Savage Worlds is d6 plus 1, D&D is a d6, blah, 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 blah. No, you fell 100 feet, you take 50 damage. Done. Now, again, exceptions to the rules. If the GM says it's possible, you can use a reaction to try and grab a ledge and reduce fall damage. There's certain actions if you train certain skills, or you can make checks to reduce fall damage. If you land on something soft, it can reduce the fall damage. I believe up to 20 feet, though. They basically go, look, I don't care if you hit water, if you hit from 1,000 feet. Sure, it absorbs some of the impact. It won't really matter. And if I'm recalling, again, I'm doing this a lot off memory. I've read through the book twice. That is not enough for me to memorize it. I think it caps at like 1,500 feet. So half of that's 750 damage. You can't take more than that in one fall. Even at super high levels, with how they do health and everything in this game, you're probably not going to survive that anyways, unless you're a character built to do that at such high level play. It is a supers game and stuff. But it's so simple. It's so elegant. There's not even dice. It also means the difference between falling 10 feet and falling 8 feet matters. Now, not enough where it's like, we need to know. But if the GM says, yeah, that was a 14-foot fall, you're not looking up. You're not getting, it's like, all right, half of 14's 7. And with everything in this game, if it's something where half makes an odd, like makes a fraction, you round down, always. So a 15-foot fall and 14-foot fall are the same. But a 16-foot fall and a 14-foot fall aren't. It's 1 point of damage. And with attrition-based gameplay, that could matter. So I do really enjoy that. I'll just flat out say, I don't have to mod anything. I'm just going to take that falling mechanic and use it as my falling mechanic for all my games now. I like it. Okay. This is one of those. It took me a while to really grok, and I'm not going to go in depth. I could probably do a whole video about this if I start doing Pathfinder videos. This is still a Savage Worlds channel, guys. I also do game reviews, and this is a big game. I might do Pathfinder videos if this really grabs me. We'll see. I am not making promises on that. But I really like how they handle crafting. And this goes with how they handle skill proficiencies and the different tiers, because the higher you are in a proficiency in the crafting skill, the more income you can earn per day crafting, because you're a better crafter. That's also the more income you earn towards finishing a project. You always have to pay half the material cost in raw materials, or half the item cost in raw materials. Fine, that's bog standard. You make your check. If you succeed, you can be done right then and there as long as you pay for the other half. It's essentially paying for other people to help, paying to cut corners, all kinds of ways to do that. You can just throw money at the problem and finish it. For a lot of crafting, that actually is pretty true. But then the thing I love is it's not all or nothing. You then, for every day, you can cut of what's still owed out for free because you're putting the time into it. But at any time, you can basically pay off your remaining balance. So there's a lot of options on how much do I want to pay out of funds versus how much I want to pay with my time. Time and money are two separate currencies for crafting and how they handle it, and how the more skilled you are at it, technically the faster you can craft. I really enjoy. There's only one crafting skill which covers all rudimentary crafting, all basic goods. You want to craft magic items, you got to take a feat for it, and now you can craft magic items. You want to craft alchemical items, it's still the crafting skill, but you take a feat that lets you craft alchemical items. Boom. Crafting magic items, I'm 99% sure it's the same with crafting alchemical items, but how many you start with is different. It's a similar situation to D&D 5th, which again, I actually like. I like the Xanathar's Guide, D&D 5th edition of crafting, where you need formulas to craft. But unlike D&D 5th, if you've invested a feat to go, I know how to craft magic items, you go, I also have already figured out how to craft a few. You start with, I believe, 4 formulas. And then you and the GM, technically it says the GM, I think the player should have some back and forth input, determine how rare those ingredients are. Now, when we get into the wording and the indecisiveness of some of the things in this edition, they say it's up to the GM whether or not you can just buy all the raw ingredients or if you have to quest for some rarer ones. There's no set in stone where 5th edition goes, there's always one rare ingredient. It's this difficulty based on the item. I kind of do actually like that because it means you want to get a magic item. Here's a quest. Personally, when we get into my upcoming revised XP video, it'll be, here's a quest. You don't get XP for that quest. Well, then why would I do it? Because you're questing for that item for personal crafting. Your reward is it's a side quest you chose to go do, and now you get an item that'll make you better on the quests that give you XP.